You're listening to the Listen Up Show, Startup Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Mitchell Chadro, your host. Today on Show 011. Some of the takeaways: don't hesitate to set a new path or a new trail because you're thinking you're not entirely sure you can pull it all off, or because you think you lack the skills or the know-how or the connections or the money and certainly the confidence we feel like we need to get started. Thus, so many never risk starting. And so that's another major takeaway. You have to start, you have to begin, you gotta focus, you gotta do it. Or we give up when things get rough, or if things are taking too long, especially the things we hope to do, like starting a business, growing the business, moving into a new industry, spearheading a movement that we care about, reinventing ourselves, building a new career or a life from scratch is something we've never ever done before, let's say. So what separates those like Marcus who actually pursue these worthy projects and grow enormous empires from those that actually don't? And I'm sure they've all figured it out. Here's the secret: they didn't. And here's another: they still don't. Listen up, trusted friends. It's your business, it's your family, it's your life. Now let's get started. Please sign up to my email list for the latest special offers exclusive for our Listen Up Show Startup Entrepreneur Podcast audience at mitchellchadro.com/sign-up. I have been providing business advice, resources, and help to entrepreneurs for over 20 years, and I'm looking forward to helping all of you. Sign up for my email list, again, at mitchellchadro.com/sign-up. I will provide you with full transcript for each interview, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, the Startup Checklist, and many other education and training materials, all back at mitchellchadro.com/sign-up. Now enjoy the show. Today's show is about Marcus Aurelius. He authored Meditations. He was a philosopher and the last good legendary Roman emperor before its decline. He actually ruled from 161 AD to 180 AD and developed a reputation for being the ideal wise leader. Plato termed him the philosopher king. I mean, President Bill Clinton has said it is one of his all-time favorite book. This is going to be the next best thing, looking at his actual writings. There's so much wisdom and true value in his writings, and there are so many takeaways that we can apply to our everyday business, family, and life starting now. As far as we know, Aurelius wrote these ideas down for himself and had absolutely no intention of having it published. In a way, Meditations offers an inside look at the mind of the man who was both governing the Roman Empire and struggling with the same issues that you and I do on a daily basis. It's so applicable with rich advice on the day-to-day stuff, making it as relevant today as it was almost 2,000 years ago. I'm thinking about this man who was so very powerful, and at the time he was alive, he was actually the most powerful man on earth. And he still took the time to sit down each day to write himself notes. He wrote about restraint and compassion and humility. And what he left unknowingly for all of us today is an actual guide for living with purpose and the practical application of true values. It's not merely some intellectual enterprise, but a great tool that we can actually use to become better entrepreneurs, both you and I together, better family members, and better people in life. We're going to look at a series of his quotes, lessons that we can learn from this famous Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius. He had a brilliant life with all of his philosophies, his interesting insights on difficult questions, but he provided practical strategies for dealing with all of these challenges that we face along our own path. He had his own life challenges, like fighting the rebellions, the passing of his wife and his close friend, and the realization that his son, Commodus, was destined to not be a very good ruler. And so he had to deal with all of those challenges during his lifetime as well. he dealt with these hardships by actually turning to philosophy, specifically Stoicism, which is what the ancient Greeks and his contemporary Roman philosophers basically looked to. Our startup round. For all your hosting needs, head on over to mitchellchadrow.com/hosting. mitchellchadrow.com/hosting for all your web hosting needs. Who do you use to host this website? The lessons learned here are very practical applications, so we can get started as business owners, family members, and live our lives in much better ways. Actually, when he rose in the morning, he actually said, and his quote was, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." So very powerful stuff. Meditations actually chronicles both his strengths and his weaknesses, and it's perhaps one of the earliest diaries known. It actually shows us today the importance of keeping a diary, not only in written form, but I'm even going to suggest that we start to even keep an audio diary. On life, he says, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way, and it's in the way of your thinking. Entrepreneurship, in a lot of ways, and the ideas and concepts written from thousands of years ago, basically Stoicism, can make you actually a much better entrepreneur. The philosophical school of Stoicism, it's like an operating system for teaching you how to thrive in high-stress environments. So every day we find ourselves in chaotic circumstances. You know, the path is not always perfect, and we basically have to learn how to deal with, sometimes chaotic and stress-filled environments. And using some of his philosophies and his insights can certainly help you through. I've actually been keeping journals since law school, and it's certainly helped me with getting my thoughts down and helping me through a lot of different circumstances. And like I said, instead of just maybe keeping a written diary, we could also think about an audio diary, which is actually interesting, and it certainly appeals to me, but more on that in one of my upcoming newsletters. On self-confidence, he says, when another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You'll realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety, that there should hold any particular opinion about you. And I think that's really true, because it's more important what you think of yourself than what others think of you, and I think that's what he was trying to get at. And don't really spend a lot of your extra time worrying about that, because it's extra energy that you can use in your business endeavors. On finding blame or fault on others, he instructs, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? And I'm actually at fault here too, because every day, if you think about it, you're always looking at different things, different people, and circumstances that happen. And if you don't really stop, you're oftentimes blaming others. I think I'm really going to stop, think about that quote before I do that the next time. So if you're still not convinced how these actual writings are so impactful and why every entrepreneur should actually be reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, check out what he says about thinking towards the future. He says, never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. So if you think about it, people are kind of going back and thinking what happened in the past, and people, of course, are consumed with what's going to be in the future. Is the business going to take off? Am I going to be able to make this product get to market? Am I going to find business clients? And what he's really saying is that just focus on the present. Really will take care of itself. Great advice again. Same topic. He also says that when another blames you or hates you, or people voice criticism, like I said before, just kind of, take a look at what their opinions are and really be more concerned about your opinion for yourself. Meditations consists of just under 200 pages, and it consists of his most personal thoughts and life philosophy. And although it might not have many pages, it might take longer to actually go through, because it's just so powerful. I mean, every time you go through it, you just want to actually start writing things down as you're learning more and more more from this most amazing diary. For example, he says that the first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. To me, it's like, don't run away from the issue, don't run away from the problem, and, don't be troubled by it. Know that you're going to sort of get to the answer. Strength from within, not from without. And we call that actually spirit. It says, look well into thyself, he says, there is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. And that's really true. It's kind of like you have to count on yourself to sort of get you through the hard times, but it's also nice to know that you have a community here of trusted friends to know that we're also going to be here to help guide you and take you through each step of the way. So that's also, when it comes to business ideas or how to be or how to act, his personal philosophy on life and his advice of being a real with universal practical applications. I mean, he talks about how he can, being a man, a leader, and dealing with difficult, angry people, and how to deal with work and duty. And as you read each paragraph, you really stop to think about all its implications, pondering all of his words, and you're so motivated to use this priceless advice to just live a better life and to be more fulfilled in your everyday, in everyday occurrences. On lowering your expectations, dealing with others throughout your day, he comments, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. So next to the lessons, for me at least, in the Bible, I'd say this book, this actual diary, provides us so much guidance on how to live, lead, and treat others well. Meditations, however, is not a religious book, so I just want to point that out. If you want to improve in business, family, and life, then I would actually run to listen to this book. So you can actually pick up the audio for free, which is a 1-month free trial subscription if you actually go to mitchellchadro.com/books. As I mentioned in here, whether it's how to get up in the morning to preparing for your legacy, I mean, meditations really is an A to Z on living a full life. On opinions of others, he says, I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinions of others. So to me, what that's really saying is that don't be so concerned about what other people are saying or thinking. You've really got to take solace in your own abilities to sort of go out and make it happen, but know that you have a whole community here that's going to back you and sort of be with you to help you and guide you as well. Why was he the most beloved emperor in the history of the Roman Empire? I mean, he ruled for 19 years, and unlike the majority of emperors who came before him and actually after him, Aurelius was deemed an incorruptible leader. I mean, he fought off several threats to the Roman Empire during his reign and believed life's purpose revolved around service and duty and respecting the nature of the universe. So he had total control over this entire empire, yet never once did he use that privilege for his own personal gain. And despite being the most powerful man in the world, he remained balanced. He was stern when he needed to be, but he always was understanding of others, and amazingly, even his enemies. He could have had the best wines, food, companions in the entire empire during all of these years that he was the leader, which is what most emperors actually did. But he actually abstained from such temptation. He believed such discipline was required of a leader, and he explains how one must deal with temptations in life, and that anything which does not make you a better man must be avoided. It kind of reminds me that he was so selfless in everything that he did, and he wanted to do what was right and what was good, and that's really what his teachings kind of tell us, that it's so important. We're building these businesses, like I've said in other podcasts. Each and every day we're putting so much time and effort into it, but let's not lose sight as to why we're doing it. We also want to make sure that we're focused on our families, doing what's right for them, but we also want to live a good life as well, and so we want to sort of balance all three. Who really knows? but maybe he actually really didn't want to be emperor. I truly get that impression that during his leadership, he was kind of like lonely. He was like balancing between what was the right thing to do for the empire on the one hand and what was right for nature of the universe on the other. And I kind of believe he might have been a little torn, but at least that was my take on it. He wrote in his diary, but he didn't do it because he thought it would ever be published. There's a lot of people, whether it be presidents or famous people, that write diaries, and they realize that one day they're going to be read by many, many people for generations to come. And so you kind of always think when things are written down, are they sort of writing them in such a way they're concerned about what other people are going to think? He wrote in this diary literally not for anybody to ever read it. That's what, to me at least, makes it so genuine and so honest and so truthful and actually so overwhelmingly powerful, is that total truth in terms of what he really believed and what he felt. No one actually knew about the diary while he was alive. It was actually a secret. It was only really discovered after his passing. So really, what an awesome, valuable piece of literature that we now have. This amazing work was initially published in Greek, the language in which Aurelius wrote it. And since then, it's been published in several languages. Actually, it's deemed to be one of the best pieces of Stoic literature in history. So what are some of the lessons that entrepreneurs can learn from Marcus Aurelius and Meditations? Well, on Focus, he says, make time for yourself to learn something worthwhile and stop letting yourself be pulled in all directions. But make sure you guard against the other kind of confusion. People who labor all their lives but have no purpose to direct every thought and impulse toward are wasting their time even when hard at work. It's like you've got to read that a few times over and over again. It's just so very powerful. You really need to have a purpose, and you got to know why you're doing certain things that you're doing it, whether it's for your business, whether it's for your family, or whether it's for your life. You really need to sort of know the purpose behind it. And if you're spending all of this time and effort and energy, it should be for all the right reasons. So what are the circumstances of Marcus's life along with the dismal failure of his son? Well, personally, there might have always been a reason for you right now to not start or plan or not start that business or take the next step to grow the business. But professionally, sometimes you have to do an about face. Sometimes you've got to exit and you got to take a new direction. Got to basically make decisions sometimes in business. And so that kind of gets me into how he talks about control. And he says that you always own the option of having no opinion. He said there is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. These things are not asking to be judged by you. Leave them alone. So sure, you want to be precise and you want to have a genuine seriousness, but if you think about it, once you decide that you're all in to start or grow your business, then do it with seriousness. Put all of your efforts to it, be focused with precision, and don't dilly-dally. Just kind of get right to it is really what he's saying. And, work towards the tasks and goals with care and earnest attention. That's what I got out of some of his quotes. Is passion good? Sure it is. But for me, and for what I think he's talking about the nuts and bolts, the everyday stuff that is needed to be done, that's needed to be tended to for, as well as about, of course, you've got to obviously enjoy it and love it, but, it's those, some of the aspects of entrepreneurship you might not enjoy, but still try to enjoy it and love it as much as you can, because maybe you'll only like 60%, and that's the reality. But remember, you can always delegate as you scale up. So I think that that's the most critical thing to remember. And he says, it's not the actions of others which trouble us, for those actions are controlled by their governing part, but rather it's our own judgment. So therefore, he says, remove those judgments and resolve to let go of your anger, and it will already be done. How do you let go? By realizing that such actions are not shameful to you. On change, he says, observe always that everything is the result of change, and get used to thinking that there's nothing nature loves so well as to change existing forms and make new ones like them. Sure, I agree. Show your expertise with no pretension, and I think he would also stand for quiet confidence with humility in the knowledge that you know. I think that he probably would say not to necessarily be a know-it-all is kind of what I got from some of his quotes in meditation. He says that if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistakes in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance. So he's kind of saying that be open-minded, be flexible. He teaches us that you must change your approach based on what you're facing. Sure, it has to be partly based on your experience, knowing what approach to take, and based on your particular situation. So you must either get more experience or get more training. But above all, you've got to be flexible. He continues to talk about happiness. He says that unhappy am I because this has happened to me. Not so, he says, but happy I am, though this has happened to me, because I continue free from pain, neither crushed by the present nor fearing the future. So that's pretty powerful. See new opportunities. I mean, so for me, see new opportunities and obstacles, and, just be prepared to change your plans to accommodate new information that might come before you. So that to me, that's what he means by be flexible. Never petrify, always keep moving. Sometimes you can have too much optimism versus doubting yourself too early. And so, aim simply, clear, be focused, and accept the reality for what it is in front of you. Too many focus on the past, like I said before, and the future, but I think he would really say, just kind of stick to the present. He says, do not disturb yourself by picturing your life as a whole. Do not assemble in your mind the many and varied troubles which have come to you in the past and will come again in the future, he says. But ask yourself with regard to every present difficulty, what is there in this that is unbearable and beyond endurance? He says, you would be ashamed to confess it, and then remind yourself that it is not the future or what has passed that afflicts you, but always the present. And the power of this is much dismissed if you take it in isolation and call your mind to task if it thinks that it cannot stand up to it when taken on its own. Stoics view a situation being neutral. They would say an event in itself cannot be good or bad. It's only an event, they would basically say, is what the Stoics would say. But to me, you still have to decide whether you'll see something, basically as a threat, or whether you're going to see it as an opportunity. I mean, we're human beings as well. So how did he stay in control of his emotions? Based on his belief that nature unfolds in a perfect way, and that one must accept that they cannot change past or what other people feel in their hearts. And that's the way he kind of viewed it. One key point he writes about is how to recover from massive setback. It's so critical to be able to sort of bounce back. As an entrepreneur, that's the nature of what we're doing. So you have to be able to do that. Here are some of the Philosopher King's timeless lessons on how to be resilient. He says, don't worry about people whose actions don't affect the common good. Your energy and time are both limited, so don't waste them on what inconsequential people are doing, thinking, and saying when you could be focusing on your own issues. And that's really true. I mean, I mentioned it twice earlier already. Don't focus on the success or what you perceive to be what other people are doing or not doing. You really got to focus on what task is at hand for yourself and really be focused on that. On living actually in the present, Marcus writes, each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already or is impossible to see. Refrain from imposing your feelings onto reality. None of these are bad or good for that matter, he says, according to Marcus's philosophy. When you see things as what they really are, you're able to actually avoid succumbing to your emotions and accept what has happened. Of course, for me, this means, turn every obstacle into an opportunity. The Stoic fundamentalists would say, we should use inevitable challenges as a chance to become a stronger person, which to me is terrific because that kind of builds your values and your character. And good, for me, what they're saying is a good definition for a Stoic is someone who transforms fear into prudence, pain into transformation, mistakes into initiation, and desire into undertaking. So he says, find peace within yourself. Marcus writes that people try to retreat from their problems and responsibilities by going somewhere like, the mountains, beach, but the travel isn't necessary to recollect yourself. He actually advocates a kind of brief meditation where you actually withdraw into yourself, kind of just being like quiet in your mind, as he puts it. Don't don't resent people for their character, he says. If someone's character flaws has caused one of your problems, do not exert energy trying to change that person's character. Let things go. You might as well resent a fig tree for secreting juice, Marcus says. So that's really true. You can't change a person who doesn't want to be changed, and instead of focusing on trying to change the other person, either change yourself or keep yourself the way you are, but basically you can control your own mind. Choose not to be harmed, he basically says, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been, Marcus writes. Furthermore, the only way people can truly harm you is if you allow them to change your character. For me, he's like a kindred spirit. A goal or a task, he's trying to say, don't sweep them away that come into your mind. Kind of observe. Don't be overly critical is basically the message that I get from it. He's so upfront. He's so honest. It's like he's saying to us, I am a fellow human being, trying to make sense of the trials and tribulations of life. It's like he's really down to earth saying, just so. It happens. I came into this role as emperor, but that seemed to matter little to the turmoil in his brain and the yearning in his heart. I think he just found himself as being the emperor. Really, just a nice, down-to-earth person who was just brilliant beyond his years. I mean, to think that this guy wrote this stuff almost 2,000 years ago is actually truly amazing. I mean, it seems he was also trying to figure it all out. He was just like, really, the rest of us. If one of the most revered leaders of the civilized world was actually trying to figure all this stuff out almost 2,000 years ago, then maybe together our community here collectively is doing all right. Our fast pitch, mitchellchadrow.com/books for books, audio books, guest recommendations, and the books that I read to start up each day. Sponsors our Fast Pitch, my book club recommendations, back at mitchellchadrow.com/books. To see more of my recommendations and recommendations of our guests, just go to mitchellchadrow.com/books. It's your #1 resource for book reviews and recommendations. And remember, you can get meditations for free for a 1-month free trial. You might as well go over to mitchellchadrow.com/books. Our wrap-up round, mitchellchadrow.com/photos for all your graphic design needs. So I'll say here what I often try to say in my own life. If you're feeling you are losing focus, or if you're feeling that you need a new direction, or if you're doubtful, or if you just can't seem to figure out the stuff, Marcus Aurelius, more than 2,000 years ago, he was trying to figure it all out. So doubt, for me, is a part of the path. Welcome to life. You're in good company. Even Roman emperors are still figuring the stuff out. Thanks for listening. I am looking forward to seeing all of you back here real soon. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. In closing, let me ask for my listeners' help. First, please subscribe to my email list at mitchellchadrow.com/signup. You will get all the full interview transcripts, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, where I talk about these free resources in show 006. You'll get the startup checklist, education and training materials, and other resources just by signing up at mitchellchadrow.com/signup. Listen up, trusted friends. It's your business, it's your family, it's your life. Go out and live it. Back at mitchellchadrow.com/signup, help me boost the rankings of the Listen Up Show, the Startup Entrepreneur Podcast, by providing a well-written review in iTunes. mitchellchadrow.com/iTunes. It helps other people find the show. If you actually need instructions on how to do this, you can find that back at mitchellchadrow.com/signup. Thank you so much for subscribing to my email list and providing a written review on iTunes. Until next time.